All right. So welcome everybody. I will start sharing my screen and hopefully everything will go as planned. Okay, so just to give you a little bit of background on this presentation, I developed this, I think, during the first year of COVID, when we were all sitting at home and watching a bazillion webinars. I'll give a little background who I am, but I work for another StarNet region, Region 6. And I think it came about from going into classrooms and observing and helping them get ready for their ECHRS monitoring. So if you do something today that I'm saying is maybe not developmentally appropriate, nothing wrong. You've signed on, we can change. I think many times we just do what we've been doing for years. And I think that now there's more research that shows us there's different ways that we could be handling this circle time, large group time, calendar time, whatever you want to call it. So that's how this all began. Just a little bit about myself. My name is Becky Handler, and as I said, I work for StarNet Region 6, which is in the south suburbs of Illinois. And I have this long title like Katie. We have new titles: Early Childhood Special Educational Professional Development Specialist. A little bit about myself. I'm married. I have 2 children, a son and a daughter, and my son got married this summer to a lovely woman named Julie, who is from Florida, and she did her time in the cold weather of Indiana University in Chicago, and their prenuptial agreement was that they would move to Florida once they were married. So now I have a child in Florida. My daughter Dana lives in Philadelphia, but that's a good thing because my whole family is from Philadelphia. So at least when I go to visit Dana, I get to see my whole family. My family was always big outdoor people, but I was a little like, I don't like camping. I don't like hiking. I think during COVID, my husband and I really rediscovered the outdoors. I'm still not into camping, but I love a good hike. I love even walking in the cold weather all bundled up. And then finally, the bottom picture is I still have really, really good girlfriends from college. Actually, the sister of one of my best friends is listening to me today. And we try to do girls' trips and get together. Unfortunately, we lost one of our friends to breast cancer. And this is a picture of all of us. We went to her daughter's mom weekend at University of Illinois. So that's just a little bit about myself and who I am. So, just all of the StarNet presentations, we try to attach them to some DEC standards. And I think this 5.2 talks about understanding the curriculum, our framework, and really what is developmental for our kids. Also, because of the kind of shift that StarNet has taken this back, besides what's developmentally appropriate, we want to be making sure that we're making everything accessible for all children in our classroom. Most of us are in, I would hope, in working in some type of blended program, or maybe you're in early childhood special ed. And we want to make sure that we're adapting the whole day, not just certain times of day, so everybody has access and everybody can learn. By doing that, 6.3 talks about embedding our instruction. So even within large group during circle time, we can embed specific things, specific objectives, so we can be seeing if children are learning and progressing, and we're scaffolding them appropriately. And then, as Katie said, we're going to have some of that reflective practice time, because listening to an hour-and-a-half webinar really does nothing if you can't stop and say, okay, what are the changes I can make? So we're going to try to have some time for that from our breakout rooms, and then at the very end. So just a little poll. I would like to know if you ate a snack this morning, or since this is in the afternoon, did you have an after school snack? So go ahead if you could just answer the poll that Katie, and we are going to come back to this. So this would be my question of the day that I'm asking you now. And we won't discuss the poll yet. We're going to discuss it later in the day, later in the hour and a half. Okay. Everybody answered?
Can somebody tell me if the poll went up? I think we
It is, yeah.
It's
Yeah,
up?
we can see it and
Oh,
people,
good.
yeah. I think we're just about there. I don't do math well, but I think it's like 99%. Right, Katie, math isn't our thing. So you can end the poll for now.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, and as I said, we will go back to that. So just want to stop sharing this for a second and show a quick video song that I'm sure everybody is familiar with. You can see that, Katie?
Days of the week, days of the week, days of the week, days of the week, days of the week. There's Sunday and there's Monday, there's Tuesday and there's Wednesday, there's Thursday and there's Friday, and then there's Saturday. Days of the week.
That's about all I can handle of that. So we'll stop. So I know a lot of us are very familiar with that song, but I want us to think about that song for a minute. We do this every day with our kids. Most of us sing some kind of days of the week song. And this is what often happens in our classes. I should give background. I am a speech pathologist. And my very first job, I team taught with another speech pathologist, children with severe speech and language disorders who were kindergarten age. So I did this, right? And you would say, okay, everybody, so what day is it? And everyone says, it's Tuesday, it's Thursday, it's Saturday, it's Monday. You know, one kid gets it. So we need to think that this is a routine that we do all the time. We ask the kids what month it is, but typically you do not get 15, 10, 4 kids that say what day of the week. They are learning this. This is all rote, right? It's a cute song. Nothing wrong with singing a cute song, but the kids really are not remembering or understanding that yesterday was Sunday, after Sunday, every week, you know, all year long, Monday is the next day. Developmentally, they're not ready for it, even though, you know, everybody has marketed all these great songs and these posters that we put up in our classroom. So as I said, all the kids are doing in your classroom is memorizing this song. Again, if your goal is music and singing, go right ahead and sing this. But if your goal, if your objective is to have children learn the days of the week, developmentally, it's not happening. It's not happening. So this is a bit of a cause of concern if we reflect, right? We need to go back and say, why am I singing this song with children? The other thing that we all do, I was just observing with my coworker the other day, and we walked into the classroom, and this teacher really was phenomenal. She was unsure of herself, and she was doing a great job. My friend says, oh no, she's got the weather bear. I said, actually, it's a weather frog. But again, when we're dressing the weather bear, developmentally, it's inappropriate. So what are kids learning? Okay, they're telling you what the bear needs to wear, but do they still know if they got dressed independently? If their mother says it's cold, do they still go get their hat, their mittens, their snow pants? Probably not. Again, it's just a routine that we're working on. And this is according to NACE. I'll just read this. They say that there's little evidence to suggest that calendar activities really aren't meaningful to children below first grade. So that's the other thing we have to think about. If we spend 3 years doing this calendar routine every single day, they're going to do it again in kindergarten, and they're going to do some of it in first grade. Okay, and it's really not until first grade that they truly understand what you're talking about when they say, yesterday you weren't in school, it was the weekend, for example. There are many temporal concepts young children cannot grasp about their daily schedule, like before and after, or yesterday and before. So we spend a lot of time, a good chunk of time, doing this calendar, and it's time we start realizing developmentally our kids aren't getting this. Now, I'm not saying not to do this, and I'm going to give you suggestions of how to do it. But what NACE is saying is shift your thinking and use this time to start looking at concepts like language, literacy, math, science, social studies. Most people are, a lot of people are doing creative curriculum and teaching strategies gold. If you're doing high scope, if you're doing work sampling, whatever objectives you are tracking your students' progress on, look at those objectives and say, while I'm singing that Days of the Week song, while I'm dressing the weather bear, what objective maybe am I addressing? If you can't identify an objective that you're addressing, then maybe you shouldn't be doing that. But I'm going to, I'm here today to tell you some developmentally appropriate things you can be doing during that time. So if you could just put in chat, how long is your, I shouldn't say calendar time, your large group, your circle time, your morning meeting? How long do the kids sit with you in this large group? If you could just put it in chat. 10 to 15, 10 to 15. Okay, good. All right. Great. All right, you guys are developmentally appropriate. This classroom that I went the other day, she said her kids sit for 30 minutes. And I was like, not if the Eckers monitors are coming in. She said they were pretty well behaved, but then we started pointing out to her, Patricia says barely 10 minutes. Right, we know developmentally, it should not be more than 15 minutes. We should be aiming more to the 10 minutes. And the other thing is, I'm not saying we can't have these large group times, but let's split them up during the day. Our kids are spending about 48 hours in a 180-day school year in this large group. So that's a lot of hours. That's a big chunk of time when we're all saying, I can barely fit in what I need to fit in the 2.5 hours. If I meet all the requirements of the PFA grant, of the state, of Eckers, of creative curriculum. So let's not waste time. Let's make all of our time from the minute the kids get off the bus or dropped off by the parents to the minute they being picked up or get on that bus, that can be learning time. The other thing we need to think about why this circle time, calendar time shouldn't really be more than 10 minutes. Again, if you're in a PFA program, Eckers says, and I just want to make sure, I don't know if there are people from early child special ed. Eckers, when I use the abbreviation, is our early childhood environmental rating scale. That's a scale that we use to look at, are we teaching children and setting up our environment to the best of, to make it educationally appropriate and the best for the children in the classroom. So they say that children shouldn't be waiting more than 3 minutes. So when you have a large group time that is over 10 minutes, over 15 minutes, for sure, I only get one chance to answer a question, 1 or 2 chances. The other time I'm just sitting and listening, and that's too much time to be sitting and waiting. But I'm glad to see that most of you have pretty short circle times. So when we talk about something being developmentally appropriate, I just want to read this. Creative curriculum says, child development research indicates that children do not truly understand time concepts until the 1st or 2nd grade, even though they're using the words associated with time. For example, they may be able to memorize and chant the days of the week, but they lack the full understanding of what those terms like day, hour, minute, second really mean. So that's like a long time from now, 1st, 2nd grade. I'm not even talking kindergarten. So that's why we really need to make a shift. The preschoolers are focused on the here and now, what's happening while they're in their classroom. They're in a pre-operational stage, really, with this kind of understanding. When they say December, they don't really know what month came before and what month comes after. Also from the NACCE DAP position statement, it says circle time and large group sessions are limited in length to match age-appropriate attention span. So think about it. If, and again, most of you said you had shorter large group, but once you start getting longer with your large group, you are going to have behavior problems, no doubt, because little kids just can't sit that long. So if I'm a little bored, or if I don't really understand what you're talking about, that in 2 months we're not, it's Christmas or whatever. If I don't understand that, I'm going to start poking my neighbor or playing with the Velcro on my shoe. So it's not that the children are bad or misbehaving, you've just lost their attention. So I try to always get people to go back and think about this. NACCE's developmentally appropriate. Our position statement is telling us these things, and we have to make shifts in the way that we're using that 2.5 hours. So what should I be doing instead? In order to participate in calendar time, these are the things that children need to know. They need to understand time is sequential. They need to understand before, after, and future events. And then they need to understand kind of what you're talking about with the length of time. And there is, Katie, I'm not sure if I gave you, did I give you 2 articles or just the newer one? Did I give you Sally Beneke? I don't think I gave you Sally Beneke. Okay, if you just Google Sally Beneke circle time, she wrote an article several years ago. I believe it was in Young Children. And she said, in order to participate in our traditional calendar time, this is what kids need to know. They need to know yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And then before, after, and future. 3-year-olds only have object permanence, and they can tell you about past events, but they don't understand. So they can say, you know, over the weekend, I went and saw my Uncle Jimmy, but they really don't understand that that was 2 days ago or 3 days ago. They also don't understand, like when we say, I don't even know my sense of time. In a month, we have break for 2 weeks. They don't understand how far that is. But I am going to give you some ideas about how we can start making that understandable for children. So this is what we need to focus our time on, teaching them time concepts. The biggest thing is to teach time concepts, you have got to have that picture schedule posted at eye level for kids. Okay, everybody is telling us we have to do that, from Eckers to creative curriculum. It's not enough to post it and not use it, all right? Using a schedule teaches children the passage of time. So think about that little 3-year-old that was crying for a solid week, the first week of school. If I referred to my schedule and said, look, 3 more activities and then you get home to go to mom, that gives me something visual to look at. And if my teacher rips off the picture or turns it over, I can see what she means, only 3 more, because one's gone, another gone, and now I have 1 left. So we really have to use that calendar to start teaching children the concept of time. And what I like to tell people is say I motivate you and you're really going to start using it, and you're going to turn every time an activity is over, you're going to move the arrow or rip it off or turn it over. If you forget, do not fear. There is a mother hen in your classroom that will make sure you keep up with it, okay? Because it's a routine that that person likes, and that little girl will see value in it. So she will make sure, or a boy, I shouldn't say just a girl, they'll say, Miss Becky, you forgot to turn over circle time and choice time. We're done with that. But really, if you leave with, I mean, there's many things I'd like you to leave with, but I can't stress the importance of really using your calendar. And it doesn't, there's no developmental, if it should be vertically, if it should be horizontal, whichever way works for your children. I do like to have pictures and words, because that is some developmentally appropriate literacy things, okay? So we can point out letters in circle time. You know, circle time begins with the first letter in your name. And we know there are some kids that really do start cueing into the print. If people would like to put in chat, what do you do if you're using your schedule consistently? How do you indicate that an activity is over on your schedule? If you want to just type that in chat. So we pull it off, okay? Flip the picture, move the picture. Move the panda down. Okay, so a little icon, great. Pull it off, cover it up, great. An arrow, good. These are all good. Somehow we have to indicate. It's not enough to verbally indicate that an activity is over. We have an embedded schedule so they know what activities are being done at each circle time and each see, oh, each item is turned over as it's done. So within an activity, you even have a circle, a schedule that you're using. Wonderful. And that's a really important point. It's not enough just to say that an activity is over. We want to visually teach children that the passage of time has ended. But we can start teaching kids, and Katie's going to share in a bit. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this. If we want to talk about the passage of time, we can have little calendars that we start marking dates on, just as, like, I vividly remember my mother having that little Hallmark purse calendar, and she was always writing something on that little calendar. And you better believe I'm a calendar writer, and my daughter is a calendar writer. I still have a paper one on the refrigerator for home things. I'm avid about my Apple calendar. So that's a real example of a model that I had. And to me, it's very interesting that my daughter is the same way. My husband doesn't write so many things down. I think my son is a little bit like my husband, but it works for them. So I really like this. This was from Conscious Discipline. And she said to teach children the length of time, you make the size of your icons the size of how long it is. So choice time is the biggest chunk of time in our day, right? Cleanup is very small. So this was just another idea from Becky Bailey that I thought is another nice visual to teach children about the passage of time. Any questions so far? Okay, oh, this is kind of blurry. One of the articles that I did read said a linear calendar can help young children learn about time in a more natural way. It also allows us to do some more math things with the children. So you can see in this calendar, they have school buses the day I go to school, and they have a home to teach weekend, right? So we can start teaching kids that we go to school every 5 days, and then we have a house. So that's even a pattern, right? We can be teaching patterning from this calendar. Remember I said we want to go back to whatever objectives that we're using. And then you can see at the bottom, they're putting any special events. So somebody's birthday or a field trip. And then when a day is over, I'm crossing it out. So this might be helpful if you see a child not queuing into your horizontal calendar, maybe you want to go linear. So this is let kids play with old calendars also. So in our writing centers, you can either print them out or use the old one, get them in the habit. So the article, Katie, if you can share that article, is this where I wanted to share it? Yes. This was a great article that was just in Young Children, I think. And this teacher talked about that she got a desk calendar, one of those desk calendars. And she explained to the kids that this is a calendar and you write important dates. So in her circle time, she would teach the vocabulary of it is November. But then she would write things down, and the kids could see her flipping. So in 3 months, it's my birthday. I have to go through November, December, January, and wrote it down. What she said she noticed the kids doing, or in 2 weeks, we're going on a field trip. We have to cross out all the days on this week. We have to cross out all day. She started to see the kids getting the idea of flipping or waiting, that my birthday is farther away than your birthday. So just the concept of flipping the calendar. So, and again, this is a real life calendar, right? Those cutesy little, what's his name, Frank Schaefer calendars that we have on our board, that's not what we're using. This is like my mom's little Hallmark calendar, right? Or plenty of kids see computer generated calendars. So read this article. I'm trying to see what else she said. Calendars became a long-range look into past and future events. Oh, that was the other thing. She didn't rip off when the month was over. So the kids could even say, I remember when we went to the pumpkin patch all the way back here, and flipped it back. So now we're starting to visually understand what before meant and what is coming up. So she said she saw a real shift, and she definitely still used the vocabulary. She said that this is November. She said this is Monday, but she didn't waste the time singing the song and practicing it, all the rote vocabulary that we do with the kids. So I found this article interesting. I'm going to talk about another way to use calendar at the end of the day also. I touched on this a little, but when we have behavior problems, teachers in low engagement classrooms spend 50% more time providing the equivalent amount of instructional talk, but making double the amount of behavior management. Okay, and a low engagement classroom means a classroom where kids are expected to sit and listen to the teacher, or expected to sit and only get 1 or 2 opportunities to participate. Because circle time is often the first activity of the day, children may not be highly engaged as they sit still and adjust to being in school. They might want to talk about their night or why they're tired or what they had for breakfast. So we need to also think about that circle time, large group time, as a time to engage the children. Remember, we can now look at language and interaction with children during circle time. The more the kids are engaged, believe me, and I know that you know this, the less challenging behaviors you're going to get. The longer kids wait or the more bored they get, the more challenging behavior that you're going to see. The other thing that I don't like to see, and I understand that we often have an agenda, but if we think about language and communication, and of course, this is one of my soapbox being a speech pathologist, is when a kid wants to tell you about something that happened over the weekend or yesterday or whatever, we need to shift and let them, right? Because they're here to work on their communication skills. They're here to learn how to be a conversational partner. And this is the perfect opportunity to do that. So it is okay to say, you know what, I want to finish my story and then I'm going to come back. But it's not okay to say, Miss Becky is trying to teach something. We can't talk about your birthday party. Okay. So we shouldn't have the whole time planned. We should be willing to let the kids kind of shape that large group time. Thank you for allowing me. I have a lot of soapbox. That's just one of my soapboxes. So think about your circle time and squirmy kids, especially when we have our magical carpet and everybody sits on their own letter, right? Kids start getting squirmy. Look when they're getting squirmy, okay? And I like the one person said how they have the embedded or the individual schedules. Some kids, of course, can sit longer than others, but that kid that maybe squirms right away, maybe if you gave me an individual schedule just made on a file folder and I had that little act of ripping, engages me enough that I can pay attention just for a little bit more, a little bit longer. So these are all appropriate things. You might say, oh, when I'm doing the, days of the week song, I'm teaching this concept. These are appropriate things, but again, I want to start thinking about, instead of doing it in a rote way, how can I make it meaningful? So let's start switching the focus of our circle time. This I thought was interesting. I read about actually a study of some preschoolers in Chicago, and they found that the amount of talk about math during circle time was a significant predictor of growth in children's conventional math knowledge over the course of their school year. So let's make a shift in focusing, when we do talk about calendar, about math concepts. And I'm thinking maybe that's why I'm so bad at math. Maybe my preschool teacher didn't talk about math concepts enough. So sort of, this was an example from the article. We planted our seeds on this day, and they say in 10 days we should see sprouts. Let's mark on our calendar with a little green plant when maybe we'll see sprouts, and then we count those days. That's a whole lot more meaningful than just, when we say, okay, it's the 24th, let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So again, not in a rote way. I want to make it in a meaningful way. How can my kids relate to what I'm talking about during calendar time? So here's what we can start focusing on instead. So these are all math skills. These are early childhood math skills, no matter what curriculum you're using. This is the concepts that children should be learning in early childhood. So let's make a shift and be more intentional. So when we're talking about vocabulary, for example, where I say it's okay to still talk about the months, don't look at, I'm going to quiz if the kids can tell me the 12 months in the year. I want to look at it as vocabulary. You know, when they talk about November, do they remember that the leaves were changing, for example? When I talk about today and tomorrow, I'm going to look at that as increasing their vocabulary, not do they really truly understand what happened 3 days ago, because we know that they don't understand that. When I do have them count, or I ask them, can you show me what day your birthday is on? That's how I'm going to do number recognition, right? Instead of, and I think most of us are away from the rote ways, but that's a time during calendar that I can, and maybe my assistant can help me. I can do number recognition. I can also do some letter recognition, right? I talked about having print on our schedule or print on our calendar. Can they identify the letters in their name? You know, instead of when I let kids leave for circle, can they come up and find anywhere on my board the first letter in their name? Okay, so that gets the kids engaged and they're using print in a meaningful way. You already are doing patterning. Many of us have the cute little patterns, okay, but can the kids create the pattern? Or as I showed you, you know, we have the pattern of being in school and then at home with the houses, and that's a more meaningful way. So can anybody in the chat think of an example how you already are relating your objectives from your assessment to some of the stuff you're doing during your large group? Okay, so the linear calendar, we count down to special events, holidays, birthdays, perfect, okay? So we're counting not just the numbers, but to something special, perfect. Use visuals with everything, okay, great. So I don't know if you mean just visuals in general, but you know, any kind of visual can become a pattern for kids, right? How many children are in class? Perfect. Saying good morning in different languages. Oh, I like that. Count how many kids are present, right? We all do that. A lot of us have that who's here, who's not. That's meaningful math, okay? And then attach a number to it. So after the kids tell you that there are 14 kids in class, write the number 14 on a Post-it note, okay? And who can find the number 14 on the calendar? Okay, I use their clothes to compare how many pockets. Right, all those little graphy things that sometimes we do during large group, and if we get the kids involved, look at the question of the day and count those answers. Yes, and I'm going to talk about question of the day. Okay, right, and who's not here? And then we say, are there more kids here or less kids here? Right, so that's valuable information that the kids need. That's a life lesson, all right, because I need to know more or less. I need to know how to count. They move them themselves from home to school. Perfect. Okay, so I want you to see you're already doing this. We just want to continue to do this. So let's take a closer look at how we can take some of these math concepts into our large group. So numbers in operation. You already talked about how many kids are in class. We can break down, I know you guys do that. When we have who's in school today, then we can look at are more boys or more girls, or again, count the numbers of boys and girls. But I do want you to take the time to attach that number, right? Because that's an objective. Not only can I tell you, but can I then identify that number? Or we have 4 Post-its and we say, can you pick up that number and put it of how many boys there are? Can you pick up the number, how many girls? Again, I'm making it more interactive by asking the kids instead of me just doing it for them. You could have the children vote to read a certain book or to sing a certain song. Someone said they have visuals for everything. I was in a classroom where the teacher had like 4 songs and she held it up, and the kids, she used it actually for one boy to keep him engaged, that he got to pick the song, but you could vote, okay? And the kids could have a picture of 2 songs, and then they have to hold up which one they want to sing that day instead of us making the decision. And then someone sort of said that, oh, I have a typo there. That's how many legs and how many feet, right? Let's use the kids' bodies, boots, shoes, whatever, to do some math of numbers and operations. And I can't stress, then attach that number. Any other numbers and operation things you do during centers? Not during centers, during large group? Okay, that the word who means people. I think that was from before. Oh, we vote what we want to turn dramatic play into. I love that. Okay. A kid count with numbers and writing greater than and less than language. That's good. I remember that greater than and less than, right? So let's start it young. Right, voting is perfect. 10 frame. A lot of voting and comparing. Great. You're doing this already. I just want you to think about how you're making this developmentally appropriate. Okay, we know we do a lot of patterning already. If we're talking about calendar time, we look a lot at our hearts and our leaves and our apples. But again, let's get the kids involved. So you could just open up to get everybody's attention. We've all gathered and we're sitting. Before you start your reading, your song or whatever, you can clap a pattern and have the kids clap that pattern back. This I've seen in the classroom a lot, having kids make up a pattern. So instead of a calendar helper, you could have the math helper, and the math helper gets to make up the pattern today. And again, we have to teach kids how to do this, and we can do it in all different ways. We could do it with our body. We could do it with some kind of visual. And then we're sort of saying this already, but pointing out patterns in kids' clothes, right? So when we teach the pattern on the calendar of leaf, acorn, that's not as meaningful as look at your clothes. That's a pattern. Your shirt has a red stripe, a blue stripe, and then a white stripe. What stripe do you think comes next? That's a pattern. So we're generalizing patterns for them into everyday life. I love using visuals for all kids. I love making graphs and displaying them. Yes, graphs are such an important thing, and we do it, but yes, do it during this large group. Blowing up a balloon with a pump. Oh, that's cute. Releasing the balloon. 30th day is exciting. Oh, so each day we pump a balloon. Oh, that is very cute. Janet, I like that a lot. Very cute. Any other ideas with patterning? All right, so again, we have to be intentional, as I said, all day long, pointing out patterns in the environment, right? So what is it that when the kids grow up and they're on their own, married and grown and flown, what is it that we want them to do? They need to be able to recognize and identify numbers. We've talked about different ways that we can do that in a meaningful way. They need to learn to put numbers in correct order. That is what's happening with a calendar. But we talked about, instead of just having a poster, using real life calendars. They have to be able to associate number sets. They have to be able to match and make sets and write numbers. So these are all objectives from Teaching Strategies Gold. And I'm just using that because that's the one that I was trained on, but they're the same, even if you're using ELS or whatever assessment system. These are the things that we should be focusing on. So when I sit down and I look that I have 15 minutes to be in this large group with my kids, what math objectives, what language objectives am I going to be focusing on? So this was from an article from 2018 in the Elementary School Journal, and a study was done examining the activity types, teacher-child talk, child engagement, and classroom quality in public school preschools in an urban poverty area. And what this study showed was teacher talk was twice as prevalent as child talk, and there was a lack of, and this is the important thing, back and forth and open-ended questions. So large group time, as we know, should not be you just talking to the kids. It's so important that we're teaching conversational skills and problem solving, our open-ended questions, right? We don't want to just say, what color is your shirt? Okay. You're looking at my shirt, you can see it. Okay. We want to start teaching the kids to be problem solvers. And this large group time is a great time to do it. You can even say, I have a problem in our classroom. I don't know how to do this. Can you help me solve this problem? Or yesterday during centers, you know, these three boys kept trying to build a tower and the tower kept falling down. As a group, can we figure out how to help them? So make your kids problem solvers. The study showed teacher talk was twice as prevalent as child talk. That's just a waste of time, right? And it showed that because of this, child engagement dropped to low levels in about 40% of the classroom. So again, I'm going back to Eckers. What Eckers is looking for us to do, they want the kids engaged. So we don't want this. Catch yourself if you're doing too much teacher talk. And again, I feel like we're a lot more focused on this than before. And I do believe that Eckers has helped us become focused on this. But again, this is why it's best for the children, right? We don't want classrooms with low engagement. We don't want children not to be engaged. I love listening to children and engaging them in conversation, absolutely. Asking questions when reading about what they think will happen next. Exactly, perfect. That's a perfect example. So our goal is to increase that participation. So into the question asking and defining vocabulary. Again, I'm not saying everyone's doing this, but if you're doing creative curriculum studies, you know you have high level vocabulary with each unit, which each study you're supposed to be focusing on. And let me tell you, I have seen we have some pretty low poverty areas in the south suburbs, and I have seen some good teachers that are teaching that vocabulary, that high level vocabulary, and those kids are using it. They are generalizing it. It's not just posted and she points it out. She shows it during the whole unit. She's using it. I even had a teacher that came to a presentation a while ago, and she said she decided instead of Heartsy and Cutesy Valentine's Day, she was going to talk about the heart and the aorta and pumping. And they went outside and jumped rope and felt their heart pumping. And she said, come the end of the year, she still heard kids talking about how their blood was flowing and their heart was pumping and their aorta was working hard. So that shows that if we expose the kids to this high level vocabulary in a meaningful way, they're going to use it and they're going to learn it. So again, if we are doing some calendar talk, we can think about some high level math concepts that we want to be teaching the kids. So these are just some of those higher level questioning. So just a little shift, thinking about that 10, 15 minutes together, all children belong. And this, I kind of just added this slide from a classroom that I had been at. When we're trying to include all children in circle time, I think we've gotten good at looking at different things that kids can sit on, right? Not everybody needs to be sitting on the carpet square. Not everyone needs to be in a cube chair. We look at what a cube chair does. A cube chair gives me some deep pressure, right? But maybe deep pressure isn't what I need. Maybe I need to wiggle around. But if I have a special seat, or if I am a child that you're blending into your Preschool for All program, I need to belong and be part of that circle. So the classroom I went into, they had that great little rocking chair that's out for kids now. And they were cleaning up from centers, and everybody was coming to circle, and the teacher took this little rocking chair and she moved it behind the circle next to the bookshelf. That's not part of circle, okay? If he has that special chair, he should be right in the circle. So I want to just make sure that all kids are, we need to figure out during this 10 minutes, how can all children belong? Whether it's different types of seating, whether they can only be part of circle for 5 minutes, whether they have an embedded individual circle schedule to hold on to while I get through my 10 minutes, whether they have a fidget and nobody else in the class has a fidget. But if I am part of your class, I should be sitting in circle for as long as I can. If I can't sit the whole time, that's fine. And that's something that you need to work on. How can you increase my increments in a very slow way? The other thing is first then, teaching the child, first you sit here, then you get some kind of break. Maybe if I get a 1 minute break, I can come back to circle. But just think about those kids that have difficulty sitting for the full 10 minutes. Do they belong to your classroom? It's not enough just to be in your classroom. I have to belong and participate and have access to all parts of the classroom. So I've talked about the things that we shouldn't do. So what should you be doing during that 10, 15-minute top large group? This is modeled a little bit off of a creative curriculum schedule. Is anybody doing high scope? I love high scope, and I feel like everybody jumped on the creative curriculum bandwagon and no one's doing high scope anymore. No one? There are some really good, Katie, I don't know if you guys have any high scope stuff still in your library. We may do it next year. There are some good things from high scope that I think sometimes we need to go back to. That plan, do, and review, I think is very good. They have some good things. But anyway, this is modeled a little bit off of creative curriculum, but, and I'm going to break this down. But we would review our question of the day. We would review our schedule. That's how we have to start our day, letting the kids know what's coming up or what's not happening, right? We're going to do some shared writing. You might explain a science activity, and I'm going to talk about our science center that often isn't used. You might prepare kids for an investigation that you're going to be doing. This is meaningful. If you get new materials, we're going to spend some time talking about something new that maybe is out in centers. And then we're going to go over any rules or challenges from the day before. Remember, I talked about problem solving. So we can talk about yesterday in the sand table, the sand kept ending up on the floor. And by the end of the day, there was barely any sand left for our afternoon friends. What could we do? So, but now I'm going to go over all of these individually. So a little bit about question of the day. Are people using question of the day? You can just give me a yes or no in the chat, or a thumbs up, thumbs down. Not consistently. Okay. Yes. Yes. Okay. A lot of you are. Some of you are not. So just review question of the day. If you're doing a developmentally appropriate curriculum, you'll be doing a question of the day. But this is the big thing. Question of the day does not occur in circle. You do question of the day as the kids are coming in. And someone talked about this. They said they discuss it in circle. So I went into a classroom and she was doing question of the day, but she proceeded to go around and ask all 20 kids, which do you prefer, the bus or a camel, for example. Okay, talk about waiting time. So my question of the day is posted on the door or it's posted on an easel. It's a quick choice. It should be related to something I'm talking about in my study, but it doesn't have to be. They answer it as they come in. And then when you come to circle, here is your perfect opportunity to discuss a math concept with children about something that they now take ownership to, right? So right away we go. Did more kids like a bus? Did more kids like a camel? We attach that number. Did more girls like? Did more boys like? There's many different ways. But again, they've answered it, and then we take a minute or two to do some kind of math question with the question of the day. So do you have to do it consistently? You don't have to, but it becomes a routine, and it's a way to integrate math concepts and to collect data on math concepts. Okay, you could ask it in a way that maybe you could collect some different type of data from some of the math things. So after you do, the kids do the question of the day, you answer it, right? It's not enough to ask them. If you don't look at that information, then you might as well not do the question of the day. So you can start with the question of the day, and next you review your schedule, okay? You're going to consistently use it, and you're going to talk about, review it, even if it's the same schedule every day. If you have a specialist that comes in at a certain time, you might want to let the kids know when that specialist comes in. If you have something that's not going to occur that day, I don't know what people do, but what I like to do when I was in the classroom is you take a scrap piece of laminate paper, go into the teacher's lounge and get a scrap piece. You do the universal no, circle with a line through it, and you clip it onto, we're not going outside today. Because what that shows the child that might get upset in the change of the schedule is outside's not going away. It's just not going to happen today. Okay, it means no, but they can still see that it's there. So that's one way to discuss maybe a change in your schedule. But again, I started the presentation with this. You have to use this schedule consistently in order for children to learn what comes next and to make it a habit. Here's an example of using the desk calendar and even using stickers to show important days that are coming up. All right. So you have your schedule and you have your calendar. Yeah, you always, if you leave with anything, that schedule has, just like, right, when we wake up, I'm sure most of you check your schedule, or for me, I worked from home today. I knew I had this presentation. I had some things in my mind I needed to get done. And so I sat down around 7:45 to start working from home. And about 8:15, I was like, oh my God, wait, is that call today at 9:30 or is that call tomorrow at 9:30? So I had scheduled it and I didn't write it down. So I had to review, I had to open my schedule and look, and sure enough, the call was today. This is why we will review the schedule with the kids every day. You can see I'm a big schedule person. I'll stop talking about the schedule. When I was talking about high scope, they have a morning message that they write out, and that kind of gets into literacy. And the morning message explains something that might happen today. Okay, so it's like writing a note. So that's another thing that could be done. After that, you then should go into some kind of shared writing. Again, if I'm going to make this group time related to my objectives, I've got to get some literacy in, okay? So that it's an important part. And what happens is, again, who uses shared writing? Anybody do shared writing? A yes or a no? I have one no. Anyone else? Don't. Oh, okay. Well, here, I'm going to teach you something new. You get out your little chart paper. You don't have to do it every day, but if you want to start making a new routine, this is how I would use some of your time. You start a discussion with your shared writing. So if you're doing creative curriculum study, it might be about your study. If there's something big happening, it might be about something big happening, or it can just be something random. And I think a lot of you do shared writing, but you might not do it specifically during your calendar time. You start writing, and then you're going to ask the kids, and you're going to write what the kids are telling you. So, did you go trick-or-treating? What happened when you went trick-or-treating? Okay. Becky said she got a lot of candy. But as I'm writing that, I am then going to point out Becky. Becky's name starts with a big B. I'm writing a big B. Becky said she got a lot of candy. At the end of a period, I always put a dot. That dot's called a period, okay? Or I'm going to say this is a long word. This is a short word. Look, Becky's name starts with the same letter as Bonnie's name. So you're pointing out literacy. It's not so much what the kids are saying. It is, you're writing that. But the point of the shared writing is to point out some developmentally appropriate literacy concepts that we want the kids to learn. It shouldn't be long. You do not write down something from all 20 kids. It might just be from 3-4 kids. But again, I think a lot of you do this when you do brainstorming with the kids. If you do KWL, you're doing this, but you could just make this a more focused time with the children during your large group. Children that are encouraged to write and then have been exposed to writing through shared writing experiences will be able to compose more effectively with greater confidence than children that haven't been exposed, is what some of the research says. So if you do this shared writing, I guarantee you will see more kids going to your writing center or using that literacy pads and paper that you have throughout your center to start doing this. So I've done some shared writing. I always talk about my son went to a small little preschool and he lived in the block room. It was literally a room for 3 years and 3 summers because he missed the cutoff. And they started bringing literacy to these boys. So they brought them big pieces of chart paper that they hang up and they say, could you, make your Power Ranger plan city before you start? Or can you write some rules that people have to follow when they come to your city? So that was ways to get them to do literacy in the center, even though they didn't get there. But the more modeling you do, the more writing you will see your kids doing. So after that, you
Becky,
might
I'm
talk.
Sorry to interrupt. There was a question that came through the chat about the question
I'm
of the
sorry.
day.
Okay. What was it? I
Somebody had
missed it.
asked after you had mentioned about doing it like at arrival time as part of a transition. And so they had asked about what do you do if all of your kids are getting there at the same time? How does that work? Having them all answer.
So it might be you hang up your coat and then you answer the question. Okay. It doesn't have to be the minute that you walk in, but before you come to sit down at circle, for example, make sure you answer my question. So usually, I think most of the time they do have them hang up their coats since it takes people different times. So that's probably a better time to do it. So I hope that answers it. So I give the example of science, but think about your centers. If there's a center that for some reason kids aren't going there, take the time during large group to talk about that center. What's in that center? What is it that you can do? I talk about center because when I used to train on creative curriculum and I would say, what is your least used center? It's science. I think many of us are uncomfortable with science, or it's the last center that we set up. But we need to have an activity for kids to do over at the science center. So if you say, if you choose to go to the science center today, I set up this activity. I have different animals and I have circles. This green circle means they live on the land. The blue circle means they live in the water. The yellow circle means they can go on the land or the water. And you would give them an example. So if I just put this little activity in the science center, either the kids would just start playing with the animals, or it would require you or your assistant to stand there and do it with the kids. But if I prep them about this activity, A, they might be excited to go check it out, but B, they're going to know what to do with the material. And then you could have some way for them, again, to integrate math. Then write down, did more animals live in the water or the grass, the ground? At group, ask kids what they would like to see in the science center. That's a great idea. Also, that's something you could talk about. I see many of you don't go to the science center. Why don't you choose to go to the science center? Is there something you'd like to be there? Often, though, I have to say kids are not going to the science center because we don't have an activity. We have bugs and we have magnifying glasses. I look at that bug in the magnifying glass and then I hop away. So there has to be something for me to do with the material. But take the time during centers to talk about what they could do there or to explain the activity that you put up. The other thing we should do during large group is talk about any new material that we put out. I was in a classroom and I thought this was so excellent. The teacher said, today in the art area, I've added watercolors. Does anybody know what watercolors are? And at first they really didn't. And then she held it up and she took the time to explain. There's plenty that you each can have your own set, but what would happen if you took your paintbrush and you put it in the orange and then you put it in the black? She talked about that. She had a little pitcher with little cups. Each kid was supposed to pour their water. And she talked about when they were done, what to do with their water. So again, she explained this new material. Either nobody would have used them or they would have ruined them in the first day. And she made it a very independent activity, right? Talk about the skills of pouring your own water. She talked about mixing colors on your paper. So there was a lot of learning and objectives being addressed by putting these paint out, but she took the time to explain it in the large group, and she did stop to answer questions or to listen to the kids that said, oh, I have watercolors at home, I do this, or I made this with my watercolors. Or again, if you had a new block out or a new accessory in the block area. So, you know, we talk about when to rotate toys. You know, if you put a toy out now and you put it away and bring it out in March, it's a brand new toy to kids, right? So talk about when you've put something new. So again, a little side note. So now I've been teaching a couple concepts, and so many of us still say, okay, everybody sit down, crisscross applesauce. Okay, I am 100% sure none of you are listening to this webinar for over an hour sitting in crisscross applesauce. We can't do it, and guess what? Most of the kids can't do it. If I wiggle, it doesn't mean that I'm not paying attention. You've seen me, I've pushed up my sleeves, I've gotten water, right? We're all moving. You guys have put your screens on, screens off. You're still paying attention to me. So we need to have some alternative ways or choices that kids can sit. Oh, this is from, I don't know if, Katie, I don't know if you guys have had Marianne Gibbs. It's an OT that we've had talk a couple times in our region, and she's great. And this is what she says: when we ask kids, crisscross applesauce isn't bad for kids. It just isn't comfortable for all kids. It's actually very difficult to sit crisscross. You have to have good trunk control, coordinating position, and balance. So sitting and with stability facilitates increased attention to academic learning and whole group, because children can focus on you and they're not focusing on keeping their trunk stable. So what are some alternative ways? I offer crisscross. Here we go. Mermaid or feet in front. Okay, great. So Marianne Gibbs has several ways. She offers French fry. That's sitting with your legs front, you know, straight out in front. Mermaid, we talked about, that's sitting with my legs to the side. Tummy time, laying on your tummy, propped on your elbows. For some kids, right, if I have low trunk support, then that would really help me. Recliner is lying back, propped on my elbows, or then a ball sit. Now, I'm not saying to offer all of these. I think with our little kids, like, I don't know who it was, Catherine, I think if we offered 3 other choices, that's probably enough. But you might have that one kid that does need to sit on their stomach. So think about, and again, I would have a visual like this. At circle time, you can sit like this. So just reminding them. We don't make kids come to the carpet. Some sit at the table, some sit at the carpet, some walk around. That's wonderful. Okay, that doesn't often happen. But, and I did have a little boy with autism that did not come to the circle the whole year. And his mother told me that he knew the songs, he knew a book, so he was listening as he roamed around the classroom. So in addition to different ways to sit, I kind of touched on this, and someone even talked about fidgets. So again, if I want kids to focus, not all kids can focus as long as other. So do I need a different way to sit? Do I need a fidget? I hope most of us understand. We start the year, every circle should have a basket of fidget. Every kid is going to take a fidget in the beginning of the year. The kids that need them will continue to pick a fidget. The kids that don't need them will not take a fidget. The most important thing is we cannot hand a fidget to kids, because fidgets do different things. Different kids need different type of stimuli or input. My daughter, when she was little, she actually liked that little ball that you would get as a party favor that had like suction cups that you throw in a window. When she was nervous, that's what she liked to squeeze. And she tells me as an adult, it's because it was deep pressure. It was hard. She couldn't squeeze it that much. Giving her a koosh ball would have done nothing for her. So yes, 100% is, Patricia said, let them pick. Do not pick for children. Kids seek movement to help them develop their sensory systems. So allowing kids to rock and move helps their brains really. So that's another shift. So whoever said that they let the kids do whatever, if you're comfortable with that, that's phenomenal. If you're not, think about some of these alternatives. And this goes back to what I was talking about, that all kids belong. You know, how can I get all kids to participate to their best in my circle? So we're now going to have a circle time. We have about 20 minutes left. So let's go to, before we start our circle time, how about just 5 minutes, Katie? Send them to breakout rooms for 5 minutes. Discuss kind of one aha or one shift you want to make tomorrow, maybe one thing you don't really agree with. So something that kind of sparked you in this little over an hour. So just 5 minutes, try to each person just share one idea.
Okay, you should see the little button to join your breakout room.
Back for timing. All right, so I hope you had a little time to reflect. You had a little aha moment. So we're going to do a quick circle time demonstrating some of what I talked about. So Katie, if you could put up our question of the day from our poll. So right when we first came in, we started with that, and I asked who ate a snack, and you can see I've attached some objectives to this question. So I'm making it math related. Did you put it up? Because I don't see it, Katie.
I have bad news because Sina logged in after me.
Oh.
I cannot show the results.
Okay.
I lost.
Okay, so we would show the results. We would go over to our chart and we would ask the questions that we're discussing. You know, how many kids ate snack this morning? How many kids did not? More or less. And again, I can't stress that part about attaching numbers because I think we do a lot of this already, but this is a perfect way to get number identification into it. Then when we post the numbers, we can talk about which number is bigger, which number is smaller. So we've now gotten some math vocabulary into it also. So after I quickly ask a couple math questions about my question of the day, I'm going to review my schedule. And remember, we're going to talk about, I'm going to use these words just as vocabulary words. Today we will be, first, we always start with, we eat lunch at, so I even can use a time, or I can say we eat lunch after we finish 4 activities. And then if I am going to take out that desk calendar, I could say in 4 days, we won't be coming to school because we have a holiday or something like that. So I'm not singing songs. I'm quickly just reviewing my daily schedule and maybe making some note to some type of calendar that is a realistic calendar and a calendar that's related to the children. After that, if my question of the day was related to my study, I might do some shared writing that has to do with my question of the day. Again, see how I'm attaching everything and I'm not just having some splintered ideas. So I might say, 6 of you said that you ate a snack. Becky, can you tell me what snack you wrote? And again, you ate, and I would be writing this and I would talk about it. You either can, as you're writing, talk about it. I think that's better because again, you're attaching meaning to that print. But when you're done, you also can talk about, do you see everybody's name starts with a big letter? You can do some comparison of the writing. But as I said, I'm not doing shared writing with all 20 kids. I might just pick out a section of it from the question of my day. And again, my creative curriculum objectives, because I'm being intentional, I'm using expanded expressive vocabulary. I'm looking at who can speak clearly, using conventional grammar, and using print concepts. So some person said I do shared writing, but not consistently. Well, if you integrated it into your schedule every day, think about the documentation you could be collecting. And this is a perfect time to have your assistant and teach your assistant. This would be great if you could focus on these things while I'm doing this shared writing. Okay, today if you go to the Science Center, you might see 2 of these blue. Does anybody know what this is? What is this? This is really something interesting. I would give time. I'm not as good, but wait time is very important. Count to 10 when you ask a question, because it takes some children at least 10 seconds to process that question. So if I re-ask the question, I'm starting that processing time again. So yes, this is a microscope. This is something that scientists use. I got 2 of these. We only have 2, so we'll have to share. We'll have to take turns. When you're there, I put out some leaves, and you can take a leaf and put it underneath the microscope. And what I want you to do is, after you look at the leaf, the microscope is going to make the leaf bigger so you can see the tiny parts of the leaf clearly. I have some little scraps of paper, and I would like you to draw me a picture of what you see when you look in the microscope. We're going to take all those pictures and we're going to put them on a chart. Okay, so again, I've described a new material that I have. I've described how I use it, and then I've given them an activity to do. Again, what am I doing? This is some scientific inquiry, using expanded expressive vocabulary and looking at children following directions. I'm being intentional. Oh, that was Katie. Thank you. So we haven't really talked about this. Oh, oops, that goes on. We haven't talked about this, but yes, I can read a book during center's time, right? I can read a short book during center time. So if I was doing a study on healthy eating or exercise, I could read Hop, Hop, Jump, and I'll read it. And I can't do a great job showing it to you, but I like this book because look how quickly. Move your body, have some fun. Watch, we'll show you how it's done. Wiggle it, waggle it, wing it, wave it, upside down it, squint it, grin it. Oops. Shrug it, hug it. Oh, do you see what she's doing? Shrug? What does shrug mean? She's taking her shoulders and she's going up and down. Who can shrug their shoulders like she did? And you see, I put a little Post-it on there so I remembered to point out that vocabulary as I was reading the story to you guys. Zig it, zag it, leg it, clomp it, stomp it, goose it, groove it, reach it, roll it, twist it, kick it, flip it, slap it, flop. It's your turn now. Take a bow. So, right, how would I be reading that book to my kids? Would I want them to be sitting perfectly still while I read that book? No, I'd want them to be moving. Or I might explain to them, I'm going to read this really quick book, listen and look, and then I'm going to read it again. And I want you to do what the book is saying. Again, I'm engaging the kids. I'm reading a book that is quick. I don't have very much time. I only have a short amount of time left. So, but again, look, I've related it. I'm intentional. I want you to use this 15 minutes to be intentional. When people say I can't collect the data, if you're doing an activity, you should know why you're doing that activity. It should be attached to an objective. So I picked this book because I want kids to notice, discriminate rhymes and other type of phonological awareness. So now I'm ended. That's it. Okay. I did a question of the day. I analyzed my question of the day. I reviewed my schedule. I talked about a new activity. I still have time to maybe prep for an investigation we're going to do, but now I'm moving my kids off to center. And do you see, even when I pick to go to centers, I have an objective attached, notices and discriminates alterations. So the typical, if your name begins with choose a center and hop there. So not only am I doing some phonological awareness, I've now taken it back to my book. If your name begins with shrug your shoulders and go to your centers. Okay. So I don't know how people choose or let their kids pick a center. I hope everybody's letting their kids pick a center. This is the perfect opportunity. If you have those kids like my son Aaron that always goes to the block center, go ahead and pick Aaron last or do his letter last. So maybe the block center is full and Aaron has to make another choice at the beginning of centers. I didn't talk about, because I rushed through this a little, remember that problem solving. So before I release kids to go to centers, I might take 2 minutes to say, we have a problem. There's some boys that like to go to the block center every day, and you do wonderful things at the block centers, but there's some other friends that want to join in. How can we let some other friends join in and make some great creations like you do? So again, if you suggest the idea, so if the kids come up with the idea of we could set a timer, that is okay with Eckers, believe it or not. If that is a posted chart in your block area, so when someone comes over and we say the block area is full, we could say, wait, remember we discussed that in large group? We said if it was full and they've been here a long time, it would be okay to set the timer. That's different than setting the timer and saying, okay, everybody switch, or you can't play in the center anymore. So take that time also to problem solve any issues that you're having in center. So one last, we're just about done. One last great way to use calendar in a more meaningful way is the end of the day roundup. Okay, and you have a meaningful calendar. You make it yourself. You take a piece of chart paper, you make a calendar. You let the kids, that kid that knows how to print, maybe they write the month for you. Okay, now we say it's the, I don't know what day it is. It's the 14th day of November. My calendar helper, can you tell me what we did today? Here's a little picture. Here's a piece of paper. Can you draw a picture of something you did in school? So how about how meaningful this calendar now is to your kids? First of all, it wraps up the day. When the parents say, what did you do in school today? And the kid says nothing. Now I've just finished my day talking about something we've done in school today. Even if I'm not the calendar helper and I don't get to draw the picture, I might have had some suggestions. I might have just repeated what the other kid said, but everybody gets a chance to participate, right? We have 30 days in school. Everybody gets to draw a picture. So this is a really great, meaningful way to do calendar, not even doing it in the beginning of the day. Laura says, you do this. I used to do this years ago. I need to start again. It really is very meaningful. And again, remember I said, go back to my cute little Days of the Week song. If a kid wrote October, if you have a kid that could print Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so much more meaningful than a Frank Schaefer calendar that you bought with your budget that we don't even have a budget with your own money. So, okay, I made it with 3 minutes to spare. We're not going to do this whole action plan, but I know you talked a little bit about this in your breakout groups. I have, I'm going to stop sharing. And I just want everyone, I have 68 participants, well, 66, so not Kathy and Katie and myself, Kathy. Would you just type before we end our session, one thing you are going to do different tomorrow, Tuesday, November 15th, during your large group? So go ahead. So I should see a lot of ideas come up. End of the day calendar, different seating. Change how they sit on the carpet, end of the day calendar, question of the day, graphing, vote for morning meeting, different seating, be mindful, attach numbers, thank you. It's coming so fast. More voting, great. Question of the day. Talk about a center, shared writing, great, love this. Vote on the book to read, wonderful. Start creating a visual length schedule. Great. More open-ended questions. Thank you, thank you. These are all wonderful. I hope you found this to be useful. I think it did get us all to think differently. When I first start this, I always feel like I don't want you to think you're a bad teacher if you're doing this. Sometimes it just takes a little shift for us. So don't change it all now. We are coming up to Thanksgiving break. So there's a little break where it's a nice time to change things. So if you really want to revamp your morning meeting time, you know, after Thanksgiving vacation, that might be a nice Thanksgiving break. That might be a nice time to do it. So thank you all. I like to end right on time because I know we all have dinner to cook. And thank you. I will put my email up. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer emails.